So it's possible we may not see a scene like that anytime soon, although the president has worked hard to carve out trade as an area that could be negotiated with China and aim to preserve the good personal relations that he had with President Xi. These Trump tweets from just over an hour ago seem to be telling a bit of a different story tonight. Starting on October 1, the $250 billion of goods and products from China, currently taxed at 25%, are going to go to 30%. Additionally, the remaining $300 billion of goods and products from China that were taxed from September 1 at 10% will now go to 15%. You get the idea. I mean, he's been lashing out at China basically all day long. And that was after President Trump ordered U.S. companies to stop doing business with China. Earlier in the day, he said find other supply chains, a demand that was not lost on the U.S. markets. Dow down about 600 points in a very rough Friday for them. This all as a background, you've got tensions mounting in Hong Kong. The airport is, bracing for more protests there. And then you have this story this week about the estimates that China's military might exceed ours in the Pacific. All this makes it pretty tough to find a balance of trust and to work on a trade deal. Joining me now, Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Lindsey Graham. Chairman Graham, good to see you tonight, as always,
Thank
sir.
you.
So what do you make of the president's tactics here on China today?
I like it. The goal is to get China to stop cheating the United States out of market share, to play by the rules that everybody else in the world plays by. We almost had a deal several months ago, then they backed out of it.
Yeah.
When it comes to a trade war, we've got more bullets than they do. So I think the president's determined to get China to change their behavior, and I'm 100% with him.
So, I mean, obviously, if you're playing that game, this is the tough part, right? I mean, this is the part where you need to dig in. Everybody has said from the get-go that this is, a fight that should happen at some point.
Right.
It's happening now. But, when you look at the market today, obviously some fluctuations that are a little bit queasy-inducing for a lot of folks out there. What do you say to Americans who say, you know what, this is going to hurt a little more than we thought?
Don't trust Wall Street to take care of China. If there were a deal tomorrow with China, even though it would be a terrible deal, the stock market would go up 1,000 points. And 10 years from now, we would reap the benefits, we'd reap the consequences of that terrible deal. The stock market doesn't impress me at all when it comes to China. What impresses me is the president's determination to get them to change their behavior. They sell us a lot more than we buy from them. We can put tariffs on a lot more products coming out of China than they can put tariffs of products going into China from the United States. Will we feel this as consumers? Yes. But pay now or pay later when it comes to China. Mr. President, keep it up. You're the only guy in my lifetime who's ever taken on China, and you got a good hand here. Play it out.
I mean, do you think that there's ever going to be a trust factor here? I mean, when you look at all the other things in these equation, right? So, I mean, how do you make a deal with someone who has already pulled back from earlier agreements, as you said, and, they promised things? I look at the fentanyl issue, which the president tweeted about today, and it appeared that there had been perhaps a moment between the two of them where he had an agreement. I mean, the president said he told me that he was going to make sure that these fentanyl shipments were stopped. Obviously, that never happened. So, at some point, you have to say, how are we going to come to any sort of agreement on trade? There's no trust at all.
Well, it's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of verifying. You can say, okay, let's say we go up to 30% on a certain group of goods coming out of China. Well, how do we take the tariffs off? When they change their behavior, you got to have metrics, you got to have transparency, you got to have benchmarks. We're not going to relieve tariffs hoping they will do better. We're going to tie their behavior to what we do. So there's plenty of ways that Lighthizer and Mnuchin can construct a verifiable system that if we take tariffs off, their behavior has changed. Getting them in the WTO as a developed nation is a whole new set of rules compared to what they live under today. So I think we can do this. And here's what I would tell the American people. If Donald Trump doesn't do it, who else will? And if you don't do it, you're going to lose the world to China.
All right. So the other thing that the markets were not happy about was the comments about the Fed Chairman Powell. The president said, my only question is, who's our bigger enemy, Jay Powell or Chairman Xi? Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, Trump's a street fighter, you know. I mean, we have an independent Federal Reserve, so we don't play politics with interest rates. If you reduce interest rates, it will help some, but there's no getting around this. The world economy is going to be affected as we get in a fight with China. They're going to hurt more than we will, and other people who depend on China are going to feel the pain. It's going to affect the world. It's going to affect Walmart and other places. But again, pay now, or you're going to pay later. And the one thing I would say one thing I would say is very important. The longer this goes, the more people begin to move out of China and create supply chains outside of China. So the tariffs make it more cost effective for you to do business out of China.
That's already happening. They're already moving those supply chains in anticipation
China's worst nightmare.
Of all of this. I want to ask you a quick question about Afghanistan. You know, do you see a deal coming together with the Taliban and the Afghan government, and you know, in terms of our role in it? I know this is something that you are very trepidatious about.
Well, I hope we can get a deal between the Afghan people and the Taliban so that the Taliban will act like civilized people, that we don't go back to the days where the Taliban ran the country and killed women for sport. 80% of the Afghan people reject Taliban rule, but maybe you can end that part of the war. The one thing I know for sure is I do not trust the Taliban to take care of American interests at home or abroad. The Taliban cannot be trusted to police al-Qaeda and ISIS. They don't have the desire, nor do they have the capability. So when it comes to protecting America from ISIS and al-Qaeda that are alive and well in Afghanistan, you need American forces, American intel capability.
Do you have any assurances from the people working on this deal that any kind of metric or bar is going to be met in that deal, that they'll have to give us any proof that they are that they're playing by the rules that you're talking about?
Well, number one, I don't trust the Taliban to play by the rules, but even if they wanted to play by the rules, they cannot police. They don't have drones. They don't have an intelligence apparatus like we do. It would be very dangerous for us to give up the counterterrorism platform and the intel capability we have in Afghanistan to monitor al-Qaeda and ISIS. ISIS is not going to surrender. They're not going to do a peace deal. Neither will al-Qaeda. So when it comes to trusting the Taliban to take care of America, I don't. The only people I trust to take care of America is American soldiers and the American intelligence community. Another 9/11 would eventually come about if we pull the plug on Afghanistan.
Senator Graham, always good to see you, sir. Thank you very much.